This is Don't Panic, episode number 3, recorded July 2nd, 2013, on Windows, workouts, and wild Firefoxes. Good evening and welcome. This is another episode of Don't Panic on Gadgets, the Internet, and You, the podcast, to make your life just that much better. I'm Shaun Jennings.
I'm Colby Rabideau.
I'm Dan Miller.
And on today's show, we're going to cover a wide breadth of topics, our main one being Microsoft and the ever-increasing behemoth that is Windows and all that encompasses. But we have a lot of other great stories, and we're glad you're here with us today. Just as a reminder for all of our live viewers, we record this every Tuesday night at 11 p.m. Eastern, and you can interact with the three of us on Facebook as the show goes on, and we'll keep tabs on that. So if you have any feedback during the show, please give it to us. With that being said, why don't we kick into our first story? And I think this works really well because last week's show we focused heavily on gaming and consoles and video games. So this is a story from The Verge, the Gadget blog, and this one is about Microsoft teases Windows 8 apps on Xbox One, says devs get a head start by building now. And the main purpose of this article, it says that at their build conference that Microsoft held this week, it's their big yearly developer-based conference, we expected, and we even teased a little bit last week, that they would talk about the development for Xbox One. Well, they didn't. They actually kept relatively silent. But one thing they did say was that that there's going to be a common core between Windows 8 and Xbox One, because the Xbox One is in some way running Windows 8. And here's a quote from Steve Guggenheimer, the Vice President of Developer and Platform Evangelism, who
Is that
said...
his real name? Sorry.
Steve Guggenheimer.
We call him the Goog.
Everyone's favorite. If you want to know about how to get a head start about thinking about developing for Xbox One, the logical thing to do is go build Windows 8 applications, meaning that start on Windows 8, and the assumption is that it would be easy to port to Xbox One. Colby, I'll throw this to you. Do you think it's a bigger deal to get developers on Xbox One, or is it a bigger deal to get games and software built for Windows 8? Or you can just talk about it in general. You don't have to answer my question.
Honestly, I would think Windows 8 would be a bigger priority at this point, particularly for like the Metro apps, and like I feel like that's what they want to kind of build up like a rich ecosystem of apps and stuff, and maybe saying like, oh, hey, look, like you can build your app for Windows 8 and it'll be real easy to get it on the Xbox too. Like, maybe that's kind of a little encouraging, but I can't, like, at the same time though, I can't really imagine that like people would be starting building apps. Like, I can't imagine that someone would decide to build a Metro app because now it'll work on the Xbox and not just Windows. But I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe it's good, and maybe it's just practical. Like, so they unified it. So now, like the Windows Metro apps will just work on the Xbox. Like that's not bad.
Yeah, I think you're underestimating the similarity between Microsoft at least wanted to do tablets. Like, it's kind of clear that at least part of Microsoft's many-celled organism doesn't want to make traditional desktop applications anymore.
Yeah.
And the TV is a lot like a tablet, except you can't touch it. But with Kinect, you kind of can. So if you were actually serious about developing Windows 8 tablet applications, then it's pretty awesome that you can then just pretty much throw it on a TV and probably call it a day. But I did read this isn't like write once, run everywhere. So it's not like you write your Windows 8 app and it's like, oh, I'll check the Xbox One button on the Windows Store. It's not. It's just similar. Apparently they showed like some code, and maybe this was at one of those NDA'd don't talk about this in public things, but they showed some code and it had like the System 64 or whatever it is kernel path, and they're like, hey, does that look familiar for Xbox One? So it'll be cool. Like, I would never develop an Xbox One application, but the likelihood of me developing a Windows 8 application is much greater. So if I could, it lowers the barrier of entry. And I think, PCs are going to become less important, and these things are going to be around for 10 years.
Well, I think it's a really important dream. The whole thing when they pushed to 8, Windows Phone 8, Windows 8, Windows 8 RT, Xbox One, the idea is that these all run on generally the same kernel, and as you said, you don't just snap your fingers and have apps for everything. But I think that's we talked a lot last week about these consoles and what differentiates each one, and I think that actually is a strength, at least for developers, because a lot of people said PS4 went really strongly after indie developers. But I think when a company like Microsoft, assuming this happens and it works, again, this is really early and we don't know that much, if they can go to developers and say, hey, you're writing these fantastic, amazing games, what if they would work on Xbox One and the millions upon millions of Windows 8 machines and the thousands of Windows phones, I don't know how many of those they've sold, and, I think it's a huge value add to get people specifically developing for their ecosystem, and I think at the point Microsoft is at in trying to get these Metro apps built, which I know has been a bit of a struggle, I think that's really going to keep pushing this momentum for them.
A good segue is Windows Store apparently also got really... I didn't realize how bad it was, but apparently before it wasn't live tiles. They were like dead, completely static tiles. So if you open up the Windows Store on Windows 8 PC, you just get this grid of icons for all the apps that you could download and no other information and no categorization. I don't think there was search. Now it's like, it looks a lot like the Android Store. You got categories and what's popular, and you can debate whether that's good or bad for developers, but certainly a much better experience than it was. But I think that getting like the indie games thing isn't about, it's not a technology problem, it's a how much does it cost? What's the barrier of entry onto the store? And it's also like, it would be cool if Microsoft would unify these things, but it's Microsoft. Like, why is there an Xbox Store and Windows Store? Why is there Xbox Music and whatever, like SkyDrive and all these?
Well, I'm gonna argue with you on that one, because everything you just named is there unified. It is Xbox Music across Xbox, Windows 8, Windows Phone, and it is SkyDrive across to all of them. So they folded Zune into Xbox Music, and they
okay.
So I'm gonna give them a little credit, and they're really trying, and they're definitely not there, but I think that's what Apple has been so good at, is having everything so unified, and I think Windows is really trying hard to get there because I think it's what consumers really want.
I'm raising my hand because I have something to say.
Okay.
But like, I don't think anyone's quite succeeded in the fully unifying anything yet. Like, I think Apple's tried pretty hard, and it works pretty great on iPhone and iPad. But then, like, on Mac, there's an app store, but like, I mean, they're certainly not the same apps. Like, you don't buy an app for iPhone and an iPad and get it on your Mac too. Like, you get to buy it again usually.
Which is Google succeeded pretty well because they don't have a desktop.
Well, yeah. But that's
so you get the
fair.
same Google Music on all your devices and the same Drive files, and it's all called Google. It's not called Xbox Music and then Windows SkyDrive.
Right, and that's not to say that like, it's not like it's like an easy problem and they're just dropping the ball or something. Like, it's really hard, and I would imagine if they could, like, any of them could, like, put a reasonable amount of time into it, it would be done already. But I think like, it seems like a good idea, because I think that is the dream, and I think that's part of the strategy going with the Metro UI is to like unify everything, right? So you have the Xbox, which is this that's really where it started, kind of. Or I don't know, did it start on Xbox or did it start on
I think you almost say it started on the Zune.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Definitely
yeah.
Windows
You're
7.
right. You're right.
And then the first full was Windows Phone 7.
And does anyone
Right.
remember the Microsoft Kin? That
Yeah.
the little phone that wasn't Windows Phone but was made by Microsoft. That also had live tiles.
That sounds awesome.
You can get one for like $5 on eBay.
Nice.
Yeah.
That could be your next phone, Colby.
Maybe.
Too soon. Well, with that, that was a great segue, Dan, into Windows 8.1, which is a huge update codenamed Blue that's going to be delivered to Windows 8 and Windows 8 RT devices. I don't think they've officially set a specific date. It's generally believed to be fall. And so there's going to be a lot of little updates. It's not a huge overhaul, but it does add a lot of missing features. So I was thinking maybe what we could do is on a great resource is the Windows Supersite, winsupersite.com, which we're using, and it has a great list of all the new features in Windows 8.1. I was thinking maybe we could each pick one and talk about what we think, and I'll volunteer to go first while you guys figure out what your pick is. But we'll just each pick one of the things we find most interesting that they're updating in Windows 8.1. Because there's a lot, and I recommend people.
What's yours, Shaun?
I was going to go with portrait mode.
Okay, I'm gonna dibs SkyDrive then.
Okay,
I already technically did Windows Store, so
that's fine. That's fine. And the reason I chose portrait mode is I think it's actually really interesting. One of the things that's new is support for portrait mode, which is something when you would turn the current Windows 8, nothing happens like it does on Android or iPhone or anything like that. What's interesting is in the Windows 8.1, when you turn it, the tiles sort of shrink down to fit the different aspect ratio. And the reason this is interesting to me is because portrait mode is actually targeted at the 7 and 8-inch smaller tablet market, which is a new area Windows is entering with Windows 8. Now, these are not devices running scaled up Windows Phone 8. This is the full version, assuming they have some kind of Intel-based processor, a full version of Windows 8 that's running on these smaller tablets at lower prices. Now, certainly because if it were an ARM and RT device, it would run cheaper. But with these new Haswell processors, with these smaller devices, I just think it's really interesting that Microsoft is discovering that this 7 and 8 inches is kind of a sweet spot for tablets a lot of people really like. We see that with the iPad mini, with the Nexus 7, and a lot of other devices that people just really enjoy in that size. And I think it's interesting that the full Windows experience is not only going to that size, but is being optimized for that size.
You know what I really don't like, though, and this is also true of Android tablets. Like, I don't think 16:9 or 16:10 is good to hold in your hand. It's okay this way, but when you rotate it, it like magically like takes up more space than you ever wanted, sort of thing. I think the I don't know what the iPad is, but it's more squat than that. And I don't know.
I agree.
It's good for movies,
the
but
squarer.
yeah.
It's
good for movies because it like takes up, it fits better, but
it's good for movies, but it's bad for literally everything else.
Yes. And while many people watch movies, I think Microsoft and Android want tablets to be used for more than just sitting on the airplane and watching movies, because you get your portable DVD player and that's much cheaper. But I guess it's cool.
All right, Colby, what are you thinking? What's your pick?
So I've been reading about the SkyDrive, the new SkyDrive integration stuff, which sounds pretty sweet.
Here they've got a really great engineer working on that named John Miller too. I think he's doing a great job.
Me too. It's probably because he went to Marist and had class with us. Like we were all together and
we rubbed off on him clearly.
Yeah, obviously. Remember that time he interned there and had to write JavaScript?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think it sounds really cool. I just started reading about it a little while ago, but like, it basically, like, as far as I can, from what I'm reading, it's now like it's kind of just your SkyDrive content is like there as if it's on your hard drive, but it's just not on your hard drive. It's in the cloud, and it doesn't like you see it like you would any other file. You see like your previews and the icons and stuff, but it doesn't get synced down locally until you actually try and change it or something, which is awesome. That makes so much sense. Like, my Dropbox is sitting on my hard drive just taking up space. Like, I rarely touch this stuff in my Dropbox. It doesn't need to be there. Like, I appreciate that it is synced, like, across, like, it does that well, but it doesn't save me any space, which I think it should. Yeah. And I don't know. I never thought of this before today, but it totally should do that because...
Well, Google Drive does that.
Oh, does it?
I mean, it does it by the fact that it doesn't sync to your desktop by default. You have to, like, opt in per file sort of thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so that's kind of like that.
And this makes sense on tablets and smaller devices, too, which lends to that. They have much smaller storage space that can't afford these large files.
Definitely. Cool. Yeah, that's my thought on that, though. That's good stuff. Good stuff. That John Miller, man.
Well, and those are among many of the features you will find in Windows 8.
I came up with another new feature.
Go for it.
There's this great UI innovation that Microsoft has put in Windows 8.1, and that's the long teased and fabled start button. Or what do they call it? The power user tip? Something like that? Power user menu. So apparently in old Windows 8, you could like go to the lower left-hand corner, or like you go to the left and you pop over that thing, and then if you went to the lower left of that thing and you right-clicked, I don't know how the fuck you would do that with your fingers, but if you were somehow able to do that, you could bring up this thing that kind of resembled the start menu, except without any of the useful things, and only like mobility center and network connections, and you could actually shut it down from there if you... Man, actually, no, you couldn't. I'm looking at the wrong screenshot. Only in Windows 8.1 can you shut it down from that menu.
Let's see.
I mean, this is also... we've talked about this, I think, every podcast so far, but the Microsoft going in two directions at the same time sort of thing. There's also an boot to desktop mode, which wasn't in regular Windows 8, so you always had to at least start in Metro. So... I don't know. Definitely doesn't help people write Metro apps, but I don't think it really matters.
That's true. Funny. But I mean, then again, I feel like the people that they really want to use Metro are also not going to be able to go through their settings and find the boot to desktop mode to turn that on.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe I have too little faith, but
I don't think so.
Shaun, just out of curiosity, are you running Windows 8 or are you still on 7?
You know, I tried Windows 8 and I had an issue with the Maris network, so I reverted, but I own a book on it and I have read up a lot on it, and I'd like to use it.
Nice.
You know, I'm currently loosely shopping for a new laptop running, Windows 8 with touch.
Nice.
So, I am fascinated and interested, but no, I'm not running it.
I installed it on my old gaming desktop for about 2 days, and I couldn't take it. Like, it is not built for a desktop.
No.
Yeah.
And it's not really built for a laptop, especially if the laptop doesn't have a touch screen. Like, I could see if it did, and you would like page through your Metro apps, and then you open it up and say it's Office, which doesn't have a Metro version. How many years later, you can break out your keyboard and use it that way.
Yeah.
Speaking of which.
I agree.
Yeah. I could see it, like, without touch, I feel like, I don't know, it's a huge bummer.
And that's definitely where I think boot to desktop will come in handy.
Yeah.
When you're working with a desktop computer or something where it makes sense.
Right.
Dan attempted a fantastic segue into our next story. Which
Sorry.
is, no, that was quite all right. And this idea that Metro style, which Microsoft no longer uses that term due to a possible copyright infringement. Yes. It's
what is it called?
They call it a modern user interface.
Ah.
But we will call it
MUI.
Metro.
Okay.
Metro is a great name, by the way, and I give them credit for that, but apparently they can't use it. So we will say a Metro-style application for the Office suite of products were...
Metro-esque. If Metro were to be a style of application UI, it would probably look like that.
Yeah. What he said. And with that being said, Dan, you're quite disgruntled at the fact that the Office suite does not yet exist in Metro form, only merely in a traditional desktop form.
Yes, I think it sends a terrible message to Microsoft trying to convince people to write Metro apps, and you see this on Windows Phone. Microsoft, I don't know what the story is. I don't know if this is true, but there wasn't a Facebook app for a long time. There was only like built-in Metro-y Facebook that only could do some things, and then Facebook. I have a hard time. I don't know what the story is, but they released a Facebook app for Windows Phone that has absolutely no Metro-like features. It looks exactly like the Android and iOS. If Microsoft is trying to influence developers to make Metro-style UIs, but it takes them how many years to make an Office that's Metro style? They showed a PowerPoint at build, but it was literally just showing PowerPoints. It had no other UI was shown. It was just like, here's a PowerPoint presentation that's from a Metro UI PowerPoint. You'll just have to take our word on that because we're just showing you slides. Sort of thing. So clearly not finished. I'm surprised they showed it at all. I don't know. It really grinds my gears. And the same thing can be said. So that's a relatively minor issue compared to the fact that if you're not on Windows, you're pretty out of luck. And that was okay in like 2006 when there was Windows and there was Mac. You could get Office for Mac. It's always kind of sucked, but it was there. And then like the 0.02% of people running Linux, and that was computers. Now there's Windows. OS X's a lot bigger. Android is on phones. It's on tablets. It's on tablets that look a lot like laptops. And there's iOS, which also people use the laptop on the iPad a lot of times. And on most of those, you can get no Office. You can get Office on OS X. It kind of sucks. You can get some read-only, like, light version of Office on on iOS. And can you get Office on Android? I don't think so. No. And you can't get Office on a Windows 8 tablet. If you're sitting there with your tablet, just like Microsoft wants, detached from any base it came with, chilling out in a nice park, like Central Park, lying down in the sunlight, because that's clearly the best scenario to use a tablet.
Yes.
And you're like, oh man, I'm going to write my sweet report in my Word. So you click on the nice Word, you tap the nice big Word live tile, and it takes you out to the desktop and brings up this really tiny toolbar at the top with these little tiny words that you have to somehow press on, and then, that's your UI. I don't know. It's a terrible message, and I think Office used to be the gold standard of, programs. It was like I don't even know. Everyone had Office. Everyone needed Office. And now you don't need it anymore because all of these alternatives have grown out of it, its absence on the cloud with Google Docs, and Microsoft's finally entering that space very late. Very good, but really late. And on mobile.
Yeah.
People aren't going to be statistically buying desktops in the next few years.
Well, if I would like to counteract your haterade with a little sweet tea of my own and come to Microsoft's defense, because not that I think they're wrong a lot of the time, but I want to say that two parts. The first being that you can't get Office everywhere. It is generally believed that they are trying And while they are not there, that it's fully expected that there will be both Android and iOS full apps sometime early next year. Rumored, but possible. And I want you to remember, too, that for $5, about $5 a month if you buy the yearly subscription, imagine the value you are getting when you get 5 Windows or Mac installs, 5 mobile devices on any platform, plus 365 in the cloud, and in addition to that, you get a lot of gigabytes in SkyDrive and Skype credits for $5 a month. I think that's really where the value comes in.
That's true, but people are already using Google Docs for $0 per month.
But it's not the same. I will be honest with you, I tried being a cold turkey convert to Google Docs, and I said I'm going to exclusively use Google Docs. I didn't even install Word or have Office on my computer for a time, and I had to turn and install it. And the other point I wanted to make is that I believe the reason the Metro versions are so delayed is because Microsoft put a lot of work into Office 2013, which in my opinion is the best Office they've ever released. Okay, it is really solid software. They made all the right upgrades. It has all the important features that it needed. And I go back to Word 2008, Office 2008, and it is like I can't use it. I have to use 2013 because it's such good software. So you know what? If it takes them a little while longer to get a Metro version, I'm fine with that because I would much rather they do it right and make a successful product that people really... I almost enjoy using Office. And when it comes to 08, Google Docs is great. But if I get 2013, it's like Google Docs what? You know, I'm being completely honest that, you know, especially with the price difference, because Office used to be, what, $300 or something? You know, I don't know. I think they're just making a lot of correct decisions. And while it may seem on the front that how can we not, you know, Windows 8 has been out a year. How can we possibly not have a Metro version? Well, you know, get over it. Like,
yeah. So I have a couple things. Like, so one, I think like Office is like professional software, like, right? Despite the fact that everyone uses it ever, like everyone ever uses it or has used it. It's still professional software. It does like a lot more than your average person is ever going to do with it. And I think for that reason, well, to convert it like 1-to-1 to a Metro app would be really hard. Not to say that it'd be impossible. I think Pages for iOS is decent. It works pretty well. You can do a bunch of stuff with it. But so I'm okay with it, and I think it's okay, and I think, you know, they still have like obviously there's still like the desktop thing going on in Windows 8, so, you know, fine, whatever. Obviously it's not ideal for using it on your tablet. That's certainly true. But then again, like, I don't know if Office itself is ideal for using on a tablet simply because it's so intense. Like, does it make sense? But that like segues into my other thing, which is that, like, I think Office software, and not even Office software, word processing software is BS, and most people, like, someone needs to save people from themselves and stop letting them like change all the things. Like, we're well beyond the point. Like, I wish I had thought of this before, but like we're you know, when you're you get a paper assignment in college and it still says, like, you know, put 12. This must be in 12-point font in Times New Roman. Like, I shouldn't even have to worry about that if I'm writing a paper. I should just do it, and I write my paper and I send it to my professor, and it'll look like whatever she wants it to look like in her thing, like I shouldn't be worrying about formatting it. Like I feel like that's 90% of the time you spend writing your paper is like making sure it looks the way it's supposed to be. 90% is an exaggeration.
Yes.
But you know what I mean? Like that's broken. Yeah. Like no, you don't.
Well, we've solved that. It's called HTML and CSS.
Yeah, no crap. I mean, that's exactly what it is. It's that like decoupling of. But I mean, even just using like basic, like the most basic HTML headers and things. Like obviously, most people aren't going to learn that because it's weird. But I mean that principle, the principle of doing that, like you can do that in Microsoft Word. Like they're like entity style things, so you have your all the levels of headings and then paragraph styles and quotes and things like that, which is great. But like I think there's too much focus on like format and not enough focus on writing. Like Word is almost a layout program more than a writing program. It's not for writing, it's for laying out documents. And that's a problem because that's what everyone uses it for. They use it for writing, and it just gets in the way of that. And that's my rant on Microsoft.
Shaun, I've got some numbers to throw at you.
Okay, hit me.
So it looks to me, based on the Wikipedia article on usage share of operating systems, that in terms of web-facing operating systems, Microsoft only has its hands on 1 out of every 4 these days. So 1 out of every 4 people are, 1 out of every 4 people on the internet are not using a Microsoft operating system.
Okay. Well, then they hit 3/4.
Right, but that 1/4 is growing a heck of a lot faster than the Windows 8 and all the other Windowses are going down. So, my big beef is, and I said this before we started, was like I also really liked Office a few years ago when I used it. It was great in 2008. I remember thinking that was amazing. In 2010, actually, I remember thinking 2010 was amazing. But I don't use Windows anymore, and that's fine. But if Microsoft had taken like the Amazon Kindle approach, where it's like, we have a Kindle, we have a physical Kindle, but we don't care. We're gonna put Kindle everywhere. We're gonna put it on all the platforms and all the form factors, and we're just gonna spam you with it, and you're gonna get sucked into our ecosystem and use it. If Microsoft had done that, it doesn't have to be as good as. I think they should have, like you said, Colby, Office Pro on the desktop. It's not a Metro app. It's Office Pro. It's like Photoshop. It does way more than anyone really needs to do in a day. But then you've got regular Office, which is a Metro app, and you've got some basic layout and some spell check. It integrates all the other Microsoft services, and it looks great, and it comes free on every Windows 8 PC. That would have been like, pfft, oh my god. Like, I would, so many people would buy a Windows 8 PC because of that. Like, I need Office, I'll just get this. If they put it on iOS and Android and syncs with your SkyDrive, they have SkyDrive apps on those, it would be great. And the whole cloud thing is all about these ecosystems, and that's why, I think Google's the only one who's doing a good job. Because on Apple, it's really kludgy, and it feels broken. Even though no one knows that you can go on iWeb or iWork or whatever it is for the cloud and edit your documents in the cloud. But if no one knows that.
You can't really do that yet.
Oh, really?
That's just announced. Like there's a beta. Like I can do it because I have a developer account, but most people can't.
Yeah. So this dream of the cloud halo effect is killed if you take 6 years to get your flagship consumer product in so many ways on mobile, which is this giant field that covers so many devices anyways.
It is interesting because Microsoft like historically makes tons of money off Office, right?
Yeah.
Like that's like
I assume so.
effing deal.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess I'm sure they're still making money off it, which is the.
Well, it's a different form of money. Microsoft in most of their businesses is trying to switch to a subscription model, because the problem is, you would buy Office and then use the same Office for 4 years, and then they would just get that one check instead of getting money from you every month. It's more of an accounting thing.
Yeah.
But
go for it. I was just gonna say I'm all for subscription stuff, because that's great. Like, we should all be using the newest possible software all the time. Yeah.
And that's that. I will end by saying I hope Microsoft gets their act together, because I want to use Office on everything. So here's looking at you, Microsoft. But that's the perfect segue, talking about rapid release schedules, going into our last Windows 8 story, which would be the fact that Microsoft is pushing this rapid release schedule. With this update, originally codenamed Blue, now known as the 0.1 update, has been pushed across so many products in the Microsoft, from Windows 8 and Windows 8 RT to Windows Phone 8.1 to Visual Studio's getting an upgrade, and servers getting an upgrade, and Azure's getting an upgrade, and just a gazillion services all across the board are getting this. Office are all getting a upgrade 1 year after most of these products were released, notably Windows 8 and Windows Phone 8. Whereas between Vista and Windows 7, between 7 and Windows 8, it took 4 years. So the question here is this the right direction for Microsoft to be going? Are we glad they're moving up to this rapid release schedule? And what does it mean for consumers?
So I think I was just trying to look something up and I can't find it. But Microsoft's, I think, makes most of their money off of like enterprise and stuff. Actually, it doesn't matter. It's interesting. Enterprise is, in a lot of ways, more suited to this than consumers are, I think, because enterprise has been digital for a long time. Like, you show up at work on your first day and they don't just here's your Office disk and a CD key, have a nice day. It's installed and it's downloaded from their servers and everything's centrally managed, and you can just buy your site license for Office 2013 and instantly everyone gets it when they run Windows Update the next morning. So I think that majority part of Microsoft is really well suited to we're going to release a new version of Windows every year. Whether the enterprises will actually upgrade, though, I don't think they ever will. It'll take a while. They could do it. It'll take a while. I think it's getting there, though, because you see this trend where consumer technologies kind of infiltrate the enterprise. We saw this with the iPhone. No company, they all had BlackBerries, and almost overnight in enterprise terms, I would say 2 years maybe after the iPhone was released, you could bring your iPhone into work and they'd set it up, because when the CEO gets his iPhone, he finds out he can't get his mail on it, he's pretty pissed off. So I think the expectation, Microsoft's the biggest software company in the world, probably. If they're going to start releasing these, Chrome and Firefox style rapid updates, put not just once every 5 years, here's hundreds of new major features, but maybe a couple major features every year. It's a lot better for consumers. I think we see that on our phones. We see that with the yearly updates of OS X. You no longer have giant incompatibility issues. I upgraded to Leopard and now none of my drivers work. Not that much of a problem when it slowly changes over time, sort of thing. So I think it's definitely good. I'm happy to see them do it. I just hope they would employ that for their Office development schedule.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's so. I think if they can do it right, do a rapid release thing, I think it's good. I feel like Apple is kind of one of the success stories in that.
And Chrome.
With
Chrome,
iOS.
you don't even know that you update.
Yeah, which is awesome.
It's just always
that.
up to date, yeah.
And then iOS 7, it just updates apps by itself. It doesn't ask, it just does it. That's great. And if they can get it to a point where it does that, That's awesome, because that's one of the worst parts about Windows. It's all the
Yes.
updates all the time.
And the restarting.
Yes. Yeah, right. And I mean, that's rough. And if they can change that, like, just, that's like, it goes back to what I was saying about, like, we should all be on the newest software all the time. Like, that'd be awesome. Like, it's, for most people, it shouldn't, like, they if you can ease them into new things without really asking, like, I know maybe that's a little controversial. I guess it probably is a little
That's a very
controversial.
web developer approach.
Yeah, I know. Remember, we'll talk about Firefox OS. We will.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it's cool if they can pull it off, and I think it's good because, I think it'll give them a chance to, like, really iterate on things a little bit more than they typically have in the past.
I would say that I think it's most important for two groups: Microsoft's PR and marketing, who doesn't have to put up with years of people complaining about how bad something like Vista is, where they can just turn around and fix it. So all those people who said all the things they didn't, why is there's no, where'd my start button go? Why can't I boot to the desktop? And then they fixed it. And I think the other group it's most important for is, we here are power users, but you have to remember an extremely large group of the Microsoft base are casual users who aren't, computer experts. And this is actually a true story. I had met some mutual friends of the family for the first time, and they asked me, because someone told them I was into computers, how people say that, and they said to me, oh, my computer's been really slow lately. What can I do to fix it? Which is that generic question everyone asks, and you're like, how am I supposed to answer that? So, of course, my first question was, well, what operating system are you running? And they turned to me 100% serious and said, I'm running Windows XP. And I turned to them and I said, you need to buy a new computer. That's it. I didn't hesitate. I was like, you need to buy a new computer. I don't care what shape it's in. You need to buy a new computer. And it's exactly people like that who benefit from these easy to install, easy to understand, constant upgrades. And that's why I think it's the direction to go, because that's the toughest group of Microsoft consumers, let's be honest. And I think anything we can do to make their lives and then the people who helps them lives a little easier is that much better. So
almost according to that same usage share of operating systems thing, a little like 5 to 10%, so less than half of all the people using Windows are using Windows XP. So almost half.
Yeah, I think it was just last week or this week that users of Windows 8 finally surpassed users of Windows XP.
Wow.
That just happened like this week. So
yeah,
it's scary. And with that, unless there are any final thoughts, we'll move on from Windows 8 to talk about our stories of the week. This is the part of the show where each of us pick a story that we found particularly interesting. Doesn't have to be about any particular subject or topic. And I will jump in with some sad and somber news. Google Reader was finally laid to rest yesterday on the internet forever. Google, as they blogged about several months ago, decided that they were going to shut down Google Reader permanently. I was a big Google Reader user. I loved it. I checked it all throughout the day, every day. It was how I kept up with things. And I was heartbroken to learn that they closed it down. A lot of companies have popped up in its absence, trying to fill the void it left. Companies like, most notably, Feedly, which has almost become a bit of a front runner with a web solution, mobile apps. There's also a Dig announced that they had a reader, their Dig reader, but that's sort of in a rolling out beta. And then AOL also launched a reader, in addition to numerous other services. I've been using Feedly personally, and it's been good so far. It's tough when you've been using Google Reader for so long to use something else, but so far the service has been good, and I know they've been good about listening to user feedback, but I don't know what I would do without my RSS feeds in my reader, but maybe I'm just old-fashioned. Were you guys Google Reader users, or had you already moved on to the future?
I used to be a Google Reader user, but I've pretty much replaced it with Twitter, which is inferior, but serves other purposes too. So I tried the dig reader, and it's really good, except it doesn't give you an unread count, which really messes with my inbox zero fetish, I guess.
That's rough. I actually never used Google Reader or an RSS reader at all. I don't know, like, I think I just missed the boat on that. Like, I wasn't into the internet when RSS was like, not that RSS isn't useful and cool, but like when it was, the thing, I was never into it. And then, like, I don't know, I get all my news from some combination of Twitter and Hacker News. So
I think I just have too much free time at work.
Maybe.
I think that's the problem.
Yeah.
The real problem with RSS readers for me is that there are so few feeds that I want to read everything from. And so I end up subscribing to things that I don't want to read everything from, and then I don't, and then I just start ignoring everything. And
yeah.
So Twitter acts as a very imperfect, but at least some sort of signal as to what I should be reading.
Yeah.
Well, we will send Google Reader to the great yonder. Rest in peace, along with the many other retired Google services that have
Wave.
Wave. Yeah, they're a surprisingly large amount.
Yes.
Going back into the day. All right, well, why don't we move on to Dan, your story. A local story for you.
Oh, yeah, this just happened today. I thought it was pretty interesting. New York City got the .nyc top-level domain. Ostensibly for anyone who has an address in New York City can pay some undisclosed fee, which they implied wouldn't be, that outrageous, and get one. But I think the really cool thing is the my.nyc.com website, which is just ridiculously, almost unbelievably well done for a municipal website. I think it's interesting. I'm living in New York City. It's interesting how much not just lip service, but like how much they're focusing on tech. Like, the mayor has been to our offices several times, and he calls up our CEO all the time, and he mentions him on Twitter and just all over Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. And there was travel tips and here's one of the things they highlight on here is, I don't remember what they call it, but basically something.nyc is things to do this weekend, which is one of the perennial questions in any place you're living. And Google is so unhelpful for that. It just brings up all these shitty about.com things that have terrible ideas.
The worst idea.
Yeah. And I think, and so Tim O'Reilly talks about this with Government 2.0, which is kind of a bullshit term, but I think if you as a municipality can bring, using the internet, it's really easy to kind of get democracy flowing, not in the let's elect people and make policy decisions, but in the let's make this a pleasant place to live idea. So I think it's cool. Something of a PR stunt because it doesn't really matter.
Are you going to buy dan.nyc?
Yeah, if I can. I'm not going to camp out at midnight to try to get it though.
Wouldn't that be funny if they made you go and physically hand in a piece of paper to buy it?
See, that would be highly ironic.
I think that'd be hilarious.
That would be a very government thing to do. I had to fill out paperwork the other day. It was terrifying.
What kind of paperwork?
Benefits paperwork.
You should have just told them, I don't want benefits.
In their defense, I only had to do that because I'd already been there for a year, so I had to file a change of circumstance. Interesting. So, but yeah, that's my story.
Cool.
Nice.
Well, I saved, I think the one I was interested in when I looked at our document for the show, this one jumped out at me.
God, it's time.
This is Colby's story. Colby, please explain to me why I should care about your story this week because I want to. I know I really do. Go for it.
All right. There's a lot of pressure on right now. So I don't know. For anyone who doesn't know, for the last maybe year plus, Mozilla, the company that makes Firefox and Thunderbird.
I thought they discontinued Thunderbird. Did they?
Yeah, that's right. I take that back. But they used to make Thunderbird. So they're a nonprofit and they maintain a bunch of free open source software and things. But for the last year, they've been working on a mobile phone operating system that runs entirely on web technologies. So it's HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. The whole thing down to obviously at its core, it's the same kind of web runtime as Firefox. And from what I understand, their target market is emerging markets. So they're going for a really solid software that runs on low-end hardware that can be sold at very affordable prices in new countries, which is cool. And I've had a thing for it for a long time since I heard about it, really. And I have no real justification for why. I think as a web developer, my attempts to break into the mobile app development world have always been frustrated by what a pain in the ass it is compared to writing JavaScript. I just love it. So really, I want to be able to write legit apps for my phone with JavaScript. So that's point number one. Point number two is just from a general development perspective, there's a lot of ways I think in which developing for the web is way better than developing for a native platform. Just the being able to A/B test stuff and do all kinds of crazy experiments on the fly, and if something's doing really badly, you just take it down without going through an App Store review process and stuff. That's the dream. That's really the dream. That's data-driven development. I know there are some services in the last couple months that I've been seeing for things like that, so you can run tests in your app. But I'm sure those are great to a certain extent, but it's still not there. So,
but you can't have two different versions of your binary in the App Store at the same time, right?
Right. So I would assume the way it works is you package both of them, and at runtime it determines whether someone should be in one bucket or another. I don't know how it actually works. But
a bunch of if statements.
Yes, a giant switch statement.
So Colby, my question for you is: if you're so excited about Firefox OS, why aren't you talking to us from a Chromebook right now? Then all of your apps would be in JavaScript.
That's true. I actually don't have a good reason for that. Mostly because I got a MacBook Air before they released the Chromebook Pixel. That's my reason.
Would you have really bought a Chromebook Pixel?
I would have seriously considered it. Worst case scenario, I decide I hate Chrome OS and install Linux.
So today, go or no go on the Chromebook Pixel?
I'd give it a shot.
All right.
Yeah.
Me too.
It's expensive. It's so expensive. That's honestly, if I just had the spare cash, I would pick up one of the cheap Chromebooks, the $200, $300 ones, because even those look nice. The only thing they don't have is the touch. Is the
so
big
Dan, it didn't you have a fun story about a Chromebook from school?
I do.
Well, didn't your housemates last year that they thought they were going to hate it, and then
Oh yeah. So one of my housemates moved. Well, he was studying abroad here from England, and he lived on the edge. He bought a Windows 8 touch desktop, and he couldn't get on the network for months, for most of his time at school. So he bought a Chromebook, which also, kind of iffy to get on the network at the time. But he got on, and he liked it, and he broke it, and then he just bought another one. He cracked the screen, and then when he was leaving, he gave me the one with the cracked screen, and I bought a $40 replacement screen on Amazon, popped off the old one, put a new one in. And one of my other housemates was really excited to try it, and his laptop really sucked. So I was like, here, you should just have this, because I have a MacBook Air. I don't really need a Chromebook. And so, he really liked it. He lives in Chrome, so, 90% of what he did was fine. But the interesting thing is one of my other housemates who really poo-pooed the idea, who just thought that you can only run Chrome. What about all those great desktop apps that I'll miss, like Adobe After Effects and Audacity and, I don't know, a bunch of crap I've never heard of. And he used that thing those last few weeks more than anyone else. He would come home and you just grab it and you just sit on it and just Google shit and he'd be like, oh man, check this out, blah, 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 blah. He's like, oh, yeah, what do you think of the Chromebook? He's like, it's pretty good, it's pretty good. He would take it into his room and he would keep it overnight, and I don't know what he did with it. But he would take it, I think he took it to class. It's like, oh, it'll last, because it lasts like a MacBook Air does for $200. So I think much like an iPad or a well-done Windows 8 tablet, which doesn't exist yet, that's all you need.
Yeah, I think so. Oh, my other reason I don't have a Chromebook is that I think I'm more of to a certain extent, I'm more of a power user of a desktop computer, than most people. Like, my computer, it's pretty much my life in all aspects, which is sad. But but my phone, I'm the same kind of user as everybody else. I just, I go on Facebook and I check in on Foursquare and I take pictures, and that's about it. So, I think for me, it's much more realistic to think that I might one day use this web thing, this direct portal into the internet, as my phone instead of the glorious Apple walled garden that I'm in now, which it's nice, but I don't know.
Glorious.
Yeah.
Kind of dangerous.
I would just really, I just love to use one.
Soviet Russia.
And I'm sitting here in my little Windows 8 prison. Let me out. We don't have Metro apps.
There's a tiny live tile of the outside world, and you can see everyone having fun.
and then I touch it, and it turns blue and just crashes. Now, okay, so we're optimistic about Firefox OS.
Yeah. Oh, but the actual news story is that their hardware partners announced launches today or yesterday.
Are there any in the U.S.?
No, they're starting abroad. Like I said, it's emerging markets, which I think makes a lot of sense. Particularly with, I know, India and China, those are big markets. That's the big US. Companies what?
Bigger than the U.S.
Yeah, huge. So for companies like Google and Facebook and Twitter and all those, that's a big deal, and getting them internet capable devices is a huge deal for reasonable prices, because the iPhone it's $600 for an unlocked phone. So I think it's cool, and I think it's something worth following if they can pull it off. I've used the OS in the simulator, but I haven't used it on a phone. So I'm hoping once I get out to the West Coast in a couple of weeks, I'll run into someone who has one, and I can finally use it and
if that
see.
Were to happen anywhere, it would happen there.
Yeah, that's what I figure. So.
And they can all get on the internet in India and China with Google's internet balloons.
Exactly. Oh my God!
It all comes together.
Yep.
All right.
NSA will be spying on them too.
All right. Well, a lot of great stories, but why don't we move on to our picks of the week? Who wants to go first? I don't want to pick.
I'll
somebody.
go first.
Okay, go for. I'm really excited. I actually may try your pick and report back next week on how it goes. So I'm excited. So go for it.
Cool. So my screen share right now. There we go. All right, can you guys see that?
Absolutely.
Sure, it works for you.
Awesome. Sorry, dude. So for the last week, actually for a while, I've been messing around with ways to get in shape as efficiently as possible that don't hit the gym, because it's an exercise factory, and I am too special for an exercise factory. So I've done a bunch of stuff, like I have a Fitbit and all that good stuff, but I stumbled across this 7-minute workout app, and basically all it is it's a timer with a voice that reads out exercises, and you do the exercise for 30 seconds and then you rest for 10 seconds, and there are 12 exercises, and they're all approachable. There's nothing that you just won't be able to do. And I'm certainly not a fitness freak or an athletic person. I sit at a computer for the vast majority of the day. But I've been doing this for a week, and I've noticed I can do more push-ups than I could a week ago, and it feels good. I do it right before I jump in the shower. It's exactly 7 minutes. So it's not a huge commitment, and it's great, and it's free. So you should totally check it out.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's the 7-minute workout, available for iOS?
Correct. I have no idea if it's on anything else.
Okay, sounds good. Dan, let's talk about your pick. Another app.
Yeah, let me try to screen share. Oh my god, I brought up the dialogue this time.
Yay!
Look at that. Alright, so I used to work with someone who now released this, and basically what you do is, it's like a streamlined Craigslist, so you can take pictures of things, write a little description, and either make it free or set a price, and then it just shaloops it up onto this thing, and anyone you're connected with or in your local area can scroll through and see it. It's really low friction, so I got a really awesome James Brown bobblehead for my dad because someone didn't want it, and it was like, someone please take this off my hands. So I pressed the little grab button, and then it was mine. It was really cool. You can have these little conversations about it, ask questions. I haven't bought anything, but it's really interesting to scroll through and see the things that people are selling, and it's way better than Craigslist. And it's also better than that other thing that's been going around, Box, where you put it in a box and they sell it, except only laptops, iPads, and DSLRs is the only thing they sell. This you can sell anything. Or just give stuff away. Because honestly, half the time it's not worth the effort to try to price it and sell it. It's just something you want to get rid of. So that is my pick. Also only for iPhone. I picked iPhone apps for the past 3, or OS X apps. I'll come up with something better, more all-inclusive next time, I promise.
It's okay. It seems like a really cool app, and anything that can take the sketch out of Craigslist is good in my book.
Right. So you have to know the people who are looking at your stuff. So you build up this network of people in your area.
So, and you may even get a bobblehead.
A James Brown bobblehead. You don't see those everywhere.
All right.
That's very cool.
All right. Well, as I did with my pick, I think this is going to end up being a regular thing each week with my pick, but imagine a world where you sit down in your comfy recliner at the end of the day and you say, I want to watch a movie and or television show. I want to watch the Reese Witherspoon romantic comedy Sweet Home Alabama. Don't know why you'd want to watch that. It's a terrible movie. Don't watch it.
You don't want to.
But let's say you wanted to watch it, okay? And you sit down with your remote in your hand. We live in the future. Oh, my God. Where am I going to watch it? I have Netflix and Hulu and Amazon and On Demand and iTunes and Vudu and, and the list goes on. God, I wish, if only there was some one convenient way to look through all these services to find out exactly where the content I want is available for streaming, renting, buying, downloading, going to a physical store and renting a DVD. Gosh, if only such a thing exists. Well, that is my pick this week, and I'm here to help. The website is canistream.it. Can I stream it? And this is really amazing because a couple years ago, I was looking for a site to do exactly this, and there was a website called clicker.com, and it was excellent, and they did this perfectly. And then the evil corporation Viacom bought them, folded it into TV.com, and shut down the one great feature, which just goes to show the man is against it. So that's why you should use my pick, canistream.it. So it searches for both movies and television shows across services like Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, Crackle, YouTube, Epix, Redbox Instant. So, Colby, what's something you want to watch?
Don't say Game of Thrones.
No, I wasn't. I want to watch the James Bond movie Goldfinger.
That's a good choice. So I'll type in Goldfinger, and we'll hit Search Movies. And you are looking at my screen, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So it came up Goldfinger 1964, and now it's running it through all these services. So you can see it's not available to stream, but I can rent it from Google Play, from iTunes, from Vudu, from YouTube, and I can purchase it from Amazon and iTunes and Play and on the Xbox 360 store. I can also get the DVD for purchase through Amazon or a Netflix DVD subscription.
Wait, you can rent movies on YouTube?
Yeah,
Yes.
They don't really advertise it, but you can, yeah.
What? When
Yeah.
did that happen? That's
A
cool, I
while.
guess. Good for them.
Yeah.
You're watching your favorite clip from, your favorite Mel Brooks movie, and there's a little link right there. Watch this now, $2.99. Makes a
Yeah,
lot
that
of
does
sense.
make a lot of sense.
It's an anti-piracy thing. And the other great feature of this website is if you sign up for an account, you can actually set notifications. So if a new movie just came out in theaters, like Monsters University, for example, I can tell it to say, I want to know if it's available for streaming on Netflix or if I can rent it through Amazon, which are the two services I mostly use. And they will ping me whenever anything I click to be notified will let me know. So my pick, canistream.it, is on their website. They also have an iOS, Windows Phone, Android app, a Chrome app. They're all over the place, and it's just a really convenient service for finding where movies and television shows live in this connected world. It's about time someone made a database. So that's my pick.
Woo!
There you go.
Cool.
All right. Well, any final thoughts before we wrap up the show? Anything anyone want to plug? I won't force anybody, but I will make the offer.
I don't really have anything to plug. I've just been sitting on the couch.
You're going to
For
plug the
weeks.
couch?
Yeah, the couch is awesome. I love it. I love it there.
Next week, maybe, Shaun.
All right.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Well,
I'll come up with something to plug soon.
I'm going to tease next week's show because
Oh my
we're
God.
going to do a blowout
How's
extravaganza on wearable technology. That's right. All the questions you needed answered about Google Glass, Fitbit, smartwatches, brain implants, mind control, you name it, we're
Head
going to cover it.
transplants.
Head transplants. I did read that today, and that was a really interesting article.
I'm so excited. That's next week's going to be an awesome episode.
No, we're going to cover a ton of stuff. So you're definitely going to want to tune in. We tape the show live every Tuesday at 11 p.m. on YouTube. And the shows are posted after the fact on our website. Colby, what is our website?
It is don'tpanicpodcast.github.io, which we should probably get a better URL.
We're going to work on that.
It's on the list.
And you can also watch the videos at youtube.com/don'tpanicshow. So the videos are available there as well. And with that, on behalf of Colby, Dan, and myself, we thank you for watching, and we remind you, don't panic. We'll be back next week. Thanks. Good night.